I want to welcome you to day 24 of the 28 days of play. Our sheets are starting to get a little bit messy, but that's okay. We've been having a lot of fun this February. And in case you're just joining us, this practice was designed to help us loosen up, to let go of expectations, and to reconnect with joy, most importantly, through the daily prompts and playful exploration that we've been doing throughout the month of February. So we're going to continue that. Today's prompt, let's see, invites us to let our tuition choose when the painting is complete. What in the world does that mean, right? So I'm going to share with you a little bit of what that means for me, and what it means for you might feel a little bit different. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get my page taped up. For me, knowing that something is complete isn't something I do with my mind. It is really something that I feel in my body and in my spirit. So a way that I like to begin, especially when I'm trying to really be careful about paying attention to things like my body and my spirit and being a good listener, I like to begin with some words of intention. But it really is about seeing this act of creating as a sacred space and a sacred time for me to connect, not just to have the restorative act of creating something, but to just quiet my mind and my body and my spirit and just be a good listener, to connect with my own creative spirit and learn to be a good listener. And so that's why if you guys have been following me at all, you know that the name of my company is Create to Breathe. And so that really is so much of the thing I'm passionate about. And it's just what drives me to get down into the studio, because I feel like there's this really cool way that my spirit knows exactly what I need and how to kind of minister to me in those moments, more than anything else and more than anyone else. And so it really is about letting me take a deep breath and giving me that time to be able to listen. So I hope that that is your experience today too. So for me, these words of intention are about, so I wrote down create to breathe, getting a deep breath. I think I'm going to write down the word listen and spirit today. And these are not words that anybody needs to ever see. It really is just a moment for you. And if you don't want to write words specifically onto your page, you most definitely do not have to. This is just for you. I'm spraying mine. So I was using this is called a Stabilo pencil from Aquarelle. And what I love about these is that they are water soluble. So it's kind of fun then to be able to spritz them and then pull out my second favorite tool, which is just a blotting cloth or paper towel, whatever you have around, and then pick that up a little bit. And I feel like just that little bit of obscuring of what's on the page is just such a nice way to begin, but also to know that those elements, these are the building blocks now, which I can move forward as I'm creating. So often, even when I'm working on a large scale canvas, this is the way that I will begin. And sometimes it's words, sometimes it's phrases, sometimes it's just a prayer from my heart. And it's just a beautiful way to begin, because it really is such a wonderful sacred act when we create. So I think I'm going to play with watercolors today. So I'm going to get out my watercolor brushes. This is just a set of watercolor brushes. They're also good for gouache, for inks. I got these on Amazon and they were pretty inexpensive, but I've been trying to keep them. I am so bad about taking my watercolor brushes that are so nice and beautiful and delicate and then using them for acrylics because I like to go back and forth, and so I usually end up destroying them pretty quickly, but I've been trying. I've been really trying, guys, to keep these fresh for you, just for you. Okay, so let's see. I think I'm going to choose just kind of a medium-sized brush to start with. See, look at this one. Look at this one. This is a beautiful watercolor brush that then I used on acrylic, and I had some of those crink markers on there, and look, it's a mess. I feel bad. I feel bad for you. I'm so sorry. I think I'm gonna get out a bigger one to just have out as well. Okay, get these little acrylic guys out of my water, not taking up space. So before I begin, what I want to paint today, you know what? I might paint, we did this guy yesterday with our painting prompt yesterday about doing a slow reveal. So maybe I could do something else here with this one. I had this little stencil in front of me. Maybe that's a good way to start. So let's see. I think I'm going to pick up, this is a blue Le Pen, and I think it's funny to say Le Pen. And they don't work perfectly on watercolor paper because it's so nubby, but I don't really care. So I'm just going to really loosely go around my little floral outline here. It's the things that catch your attention too, things that you're drawn to. That's another way that your creative spirit or your intuition speaks to you. You know, a lot of these words, by the way, also are very interchangeable. Some people say Holy Spirit. Some people say, my consciousness. Some people say, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's all very interchangeable. I have a friend who just refers to her creativity as a person. And so it's, whatever your relationship looks like, or whether maybe you have more of like a church background. And so there are words that you have grown up with, that you are accustomed to. When I was a kid, we went to a church where it was referred to as the Holy Ghost. And I always thought that was super creepy when I was a kid. So I didn't really understand. But I will tell you, though, even during that time when we were attending that church, I felt super close to the Spirit. And I felt like when I was a little kid that's when I had probably the most sensitivity. It was like we would just hang out together, It wasn't like this big deal. It was just so natural. I really have like very early memories of connecting with the Spirit in this way. And so this idea of referring to the Spirit, which I knew to be such a just a fun friend to hang out with, as the Holy Ghost, it honestly never resonated with me. So I'm going to dry this actually, see, I'm always going back and forth. I'm going to spray this so that my lines aren't completely, solid that I drew. And I'm going to just hit this with a hairdryer for a little bit and make sure my sheet's completely dry. So 2 things just happened there. One, I accidentally blew out my candle. And y'all know I love to start any creative session with a candle. So I must relight my candle now. I blew that out with a hairdryer. And then I started blowing ink all over everything else. So I realized that I probably should have blotted it first before I started. Also, as an adult, just this year, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so I apologize if sometimes I go on little tangents that go to other little tangents, that go to other little tangents, and then I forget to loop back around. So while I was drawing this piece, I remembered that we started talking about how do you even know how to begin? So I will go back to that, I promise. So what I pay attention to is what are the things that are calling my attention? What's grabbing my attention? That's just a way that I feel like my creative spirit gets my focus, right? And so when I feel like my focus shifts, then I like to pay attention to that. So I definitely saw the Stabilo pencil. I definitely felt very called to do the words of intention today. And to make these playful marks, you know, just even that my eyes fell back upon this little stencil that we made yesterday, I felt like that was like just a little like, hey, I got you, Tish. I got you. We're just going to move forward and play today. We're getting there, guys. We are getting there. Do you guys want a candle too? Okay, there you go. Okay. So I think what I want to do is, now that my sheet is dry, I want to use this kind of wet on dry technique. And so inside of these flowers, I'm just going to add some water. I guess these really aren't flowers, they're leaves, right? But I'm going to add some water, I'm like painting with water, essentially. And now I want to grab some color. So I'm thinking that I might start with yellow, mostly because yellow was the first color I grabbed. And I try not to overthink or make those decisions like too labored, because I feel like the more that I get into my headspace, the more that I move out of my heart space. And so what I'm doing now is I'm really just kind of dropping in. Ooh, maybe I'll just try that. Maybe I'll just drop in some of the color there into the water that was on where the leaf is. And let's see, let's add a little green in there. Isn't that fun to see the way it's like the water makes a little wall where it can't really go anywhere else. Okay, so let's play with making another one. Let's do this one. And then we're gonna bring those two together. So see how it instantly like sucked in some of that yellow? It's just the coolest thing. I don't know, maybe I'm just like a 5-year-old, but it's okay. I kind of like it. I'm gonna play with some orange now. I guess I'm not really using these. Let's set it to the side. I'm gonna play with some orange. These are, you guys ask me about these a lot. These are watercolor inks, right? But they're from Artist Loft. Let me hold that up for you. They're from Artist Loft. The deal with these is that Michaels carried these, and then they clearanced them out and got rid of them. And I think I'm probably responsible for buying most of them when they were getting rid of them. But the bummer is that I've even searched online to see if I can buy these, and I haven't found them. So a lot of other folks who are watercolorists recommend the Dr. Martens brand of watercolor inks. So I would give those a try if it's something you want to try to play with. And then I'm just going to add another little dot here, play with some orange. Let's see what else. This is magenta. You know I love some magenta. And my page is not 100% flat because I've been, I've been busy working on this sketchbook now for 24 days. And so you can always fix your edges. I almost dipped into my candle. That is not a good idea. You can always fix your edges. You can always like move the ink a little bit further just by kind of pushing it around with your brush a little bit. So I'm gonna go do this one now. So watch as I put some water here. It wasn't as dramatic that time, I think because I already have yellow on my brush. Let's go back to clear water, would be better. But at least now you can see where I'm painting a bit better. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, this stem here. And I'm going to put some more, oh, that's the wrong color, some more of my magenta, my beloved magenta, over here and play with that. Now, I talk about play a lot as being a way to connect because when we are playing, right, we're not trying to be perfect. We're staying in this place where we're being curious, we are experimenting, and so it really is just another way to keep us out of our headspace where we're always analyzing and trying to make sense of things, and then our judging, we put our judging hat on where we're like, I don't know, that isn't exactly what I wanted, and maybe that's not the best. We start judging it in that way. And so in that process of judging, we lose all kinds of good stuff that is available for us if we just stay in that place of play. And sorry, trying to fix something while I'm talking to you. I wanted those two little spots of the magenta to connect a little bit more. So, so when we kind of put on our like 5-year-old hat, in a lot of ways, that's when we are open. It's like as kids, we're so open to, I'm gonna brush this one. See how it picked up the orange from the other leaf? Love it. Oh, I got a little zippy with my water. I'm gonna blot up just a little bit. But it's like when we can be in that space of just giving ourselves permission, right? Like we have to be so adulty the rest of the day and take care of things and take care of other people and do all this stuff. And so it's just so nice and so liberating, one, for our mental health, but also just to learn to be a good listener and somebody who's just willing to let our spirit lead rather than trying to take all that on ourselves. Look at that, so fun, And so this is the space, right, that I really try to enter into every time I enter the studio. Now, all that said, I'm not always entirely successful. There are things happening in my life that I will not bore you with, but they're the types of things that I'm sure you have going on in your life too, that make sometimes it more challenging than others for us to be able to step aside from those. But what I always tell people is like, let's just set it to the side for just an hour because you need this time to be able to take care of yourself so that you can take care of the people around you. It is not, I lived so much of my life thinking, it was selfish to take time for myself in this creative way, especially like when my kids were younger and I was feeling like, they need me, they need all these things, and I need to be doing this list, right, of knocking things down during the day. And then what I started to realize is like, I don't have a whole lot to give of myself, You know what I mean? Like I might be doing things, but man, I don't have much of myself to give because I wasn't nurturing that part of me that really, really needed nurturing. Yay! I mean, seriously, it gets me excited every time. Such a dork, I know. So there's no rhyme or reason here other than I'm just playing and having fun. Let's see. This is kind of a purpley color, so what would go good with that? Maybe orangey? Should I go back into orange? Maybe that would balance out over there. So sometimes I think through, you'll hear me talk about composition and some of those things. And that's just, these are questions I start to ask myself, but it's really not what I let lead me, because the things that I learned in art school really didn't bring me success as an artist. Sometimes it's when I can intentionally break those rules, when I learn how to play with something differently, that I begin to discover things that I had no idea were even possible. And these are the things that I learned during these little experimental sessions, usually when I'm just playing, right? And so it's so good when we are willing to take off this is how I do this technically, and this is what is the perfect way to do it, because it is so often, right, in that imperfection that, for one, we learn a lot about ourselves, right? We can put more of ourselves onto the page, because it is, I've talked to you guys about like my wobbly hand, like it is my wobbly hand. Nobody else has this same wobbly hand as I do, that is just like my particular marks. So it's like we're baking in this story onto the page. And yes, you know, someone might be watching this who's like, I'm a professional watercolorist, and that is not the way that you would go about doing that. But that's okay, because I'm not a professional watercolorist. I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to feed my spirit on a daily basis by creating, because for me, especially having ADHD or whatever, like it is hard for me to be able to find other ways that work for me, whether that be meditation or talk therapy or some of those other things. And trust me, I'm fully medicated. I'm fully medicated. So that's not a problem. But I'm not against medication whatsoever. But I also feel like this is something that I've learned works really well for me, because I'm engaging my mind and my body and my spirit. And normally I wouldn't be talking to people during this, right? Yeah. But normally it's just my time. And so it's just a time for me to respond, pause, listen for my next guiding step, take an action, move forward, pause, listen. And I learned so much about myself in that space. I've been given so much amazing healing through this time. And so I'm super passionate about teaching other women specifically that you don't need to be this amazing artist, but we need to take care of ourselves. We need to nurture this part of ourselves. And I have another group of ladies who are all in this sort of beautiful phase of life, and that I am, so it's sort of a similar phase of life. And I feel like so much of what I was told about myself and who I am and who I should be and all those things happened when I was younger. And so I was very good. I'm a very good kid. I was a good kid at getting along and not making waves and doing the things right. But, you know, I was probably 35 before I started asking myself, well, who am I and what do I want to be and what feels really good to me? And so I'll tell you what, I am 40, how old am I? This is the age where you just stop counting a little bit. I am 48 and I feel so strong in my sense of self, so strong in my ability to speak, to show up, to not feel like I need to be invisible in a room, but rather to just take up space if I feel like taking up space, you know? And so all these things are things that I kind of came to very late in life. Even, you know, I was a little bit discouraged from being an artist when I was younger because it was like, well, how do you make a living doing that? And what do you, and so I set a lot of those things that I loved aside. And I realized, like, no, I need to stop listening to all those voices and all those opinions. I need to listen to myself. And I give more power and strength to that voice than anything else. One of the other things I've done, speaking of tangents, is I've stopped getting on social media as much. And, you know, I'll get on there and post and do business stuff, but to just scroll and look at what other people are doing, to me becomes a very quickly becomes like a comparison game, and feeling very much like I'm doubting myself and who I am and my abilities and what I bring to the world. And I'm just kind of done with it. I'm not buying into that anymore. I'm like, I am nearing 50 and I don't have time for that. I've got stuff to do. So, so anyway, I am going to now dry this. And is that what I want to do? Let me take a second here. I've been talking so much. Maybe while this is still wet, I think I want to just take some of the yellow. And what's sort of fun is you can just make some dots, right? Maybe I'll do that down here. So it's like you want to do it when it's not so wet, but it's also not completely dry. And so I'm just putting a few little dots down. I'll put one there, put one here. And then before those start to go crazy, I'm gonna get a clean, oh my goodness, I'm running low on towels. I'm gonna get a clean blotting cloth. And I'm just going to lay this over the top and blot those up. And see how, let me show this to you guys. See how wherever I put the dots, it re-wet the paint and actually starts to lift as it's also combining with the colors underneath. And then if you blot that off, you're sort of removing all of that. So see what we did there? That's fun. These are little experiments of things you can figure out along the way. Okay, so now I'm gonna dry it. I feel better now. I wanted to say too is that, you know, our bodies are always communicating to us. It's just whether we can be good listeners. I say that to say that this is a very safe place to practice life, right? So making bold decisions here helps us to make bold decisions when we are not on the canvas as well. I'm thinking about the background while I'm talking to you all, and I'm trying to decide if it needs to be colorful, if it needs to be muted. And I think I'm leaning into colorful. I want to start there and then see how I feel after that. But I'm loving, and my heart is kind of going back to, let me see if I can find it. My heart is kind of going back to this painting and the beautiful pink that we did in the background, and I'm wondering how that might look here. And I don't know that that's going to be the solution, but it feels like a really good place to start. So let me grab my fluorescent. I have lots of different fluorescents in the studio, so you might see me sometimes working with a different one, but this is Liquitex Fluorescent Pink. It's a heavy body, which I don't necessarily need in this moment, but what I'm gonna do with it is I'm going to grab another little dirty tray. That's okay, we just need a corner of it. And I'm just gonna squeeze out a little bit of it. And I'm gonna treat this a bit like a watercolor. So I'm going to grab some of this color and I'm gonna really make it very thin, and so it really is so super watery over here. And I think just to make sure that everything's blending and talking color-wise, I'm gonna grab just a little bit of my magenta watercolor that I've been using inside the flower to combine with it. So it's just gonna be a slightly different pink, okay? So I have that ready. And I'm just gonna do the opposite now. So whereas before I was painting with water and I was doing the positive space, right? Like the flower. I keep calling it a flower even though it's not a flower. It's more like leaves, but it's okay. It's a floral. And so now as I drop in this pink, right? It's flowing to that line and it's stopping. And I think that regardless of whether this stays as our background or not, I like the vibrancy of it. And so I'm just gonna continue to play with it. Oops, went into the wrong thing. So our bodies are talking to us all the time, specifically, right? Like not just our spirit, but our bodies. So a lot of times I'll notice that I need to end a painting session, even if I've given myself, right? Like if I've allotted myself 3 hours to work, if I'm getting like 2 hours into it and I'm feeling tense and I'm thinking about all the things I have to do that evening, and a lot of times I'll notice it in my shoulders first, and I will just go, you know what? I think we're just gonna pick this back up tomorrow. We're just not going to keep moving this forward, because it's my body's way of telling me like, you're no longer listening. You are not listening, girl. And so we're just gonna call it a day. And so I've learned to not push through that, because what happens is I will try to do that. I will try to push through, and the work that I'm making is no longer coming from my heart. It is coming from my head, and it is generally a hot mess, or it feels overworked. It feels like, you know, it looks like how painful it was to get it there, basically, is what happens. Like I'm just not responding and playing and listening any longer. I'm in charge, right? I have a destination. I have something I'm trying to get done, usually. And that's when I get myself in trouble. So my body, right? My body tells me if I'm a good listener. But in the reverse, if I'm feeling very contented and I'm feeling just happy and playful, then I know that that is going to be a great creative session. And it's not about how much I accomplish, it's just about the authentic work that's going to take place that day. And so a lot of times, like if I'm working with a student at a workshop, I will tell them, you know, hey, why don't you go take a little break, you know? Take a walk. Taking a walk is a great way to kind of reset yourself. I think sometimes at workshops too, people are like in hyper productivity mode because they're like, I want to leave with this and this and this, and I want to have all these things to show to make sure that my money was well spent and to show the people when I come home, like, you know, what I did. And I just think like we cut off sometimes like our ability to just be present in that space and be open-handed to whatever comes. And I'm speaking to myself in that too, because I know this about myself. But I will oftentimes tell my students at workshops, like, you know, we're not trying to leave here with finished paintings. We're trying to leave here with full hearts and bursting enthusiasm for, you know, future creative sessions, because we have learned how to be better listeners to our own creative spirit. And that is honestly, guys, that's where the good stuff starts. And if you're especially looking at becoming a professional artist, right? This is where you really start, because so much of our life creating is about imitating those around us, which is always a great, like, I love that tool, right? That book, Steal Like an Artist. It is so wonderful that we imitate, that we do get on social media and see like, ooh, what's this person doing? How are they doing that? Let's play with that. But at some point, we need to trust what's inside of us is as good as what's inside of them. And maybe it's even like better and cooler. And so it really is just learning that helps you develop your voice as an artist. And so I just cannot tell you enough my own journey of feeling like I wrestled with perfection forever. And then I wrestled with, comparison. And so just being able to free myself from all that stuff that likes to bog down our heads and our hearts has been so incredibly liberating. I just want to add a little bit. I was feeling like I started to blot it, and then I was like, I want to add just a little bit more depth over here. And I'm good with this light over here, but I just wanted to add a little more depth on this side. And I might even do that by adding a little bit, probably add it over here, I'm just going to pick up the tiniest bit of this aqua, and I'm just going to start to pop in a little bit. I need some clean water of this purple that I've made here. And we're just going to play with that purple, creating some values over here. And I think too, one of the other things that I've just learned is like, if you stay in that place of like, what if we do this? What if we do that? It's so much better than feeling like, okay, well, I've already done this. I've already put this work into this. And so I have to keep that there. You know what I mean? Like just being willing to be flexible with what's happening on your page is always a great just kind of a great soul space to be in as well. Okay, I'm gonna dry this, and then while I'm doing it, I'm just gonna kind of pause and reflect and listen, because I've been talking a lot, and see what maybe wants to happen next. So you know what is so fun? We have this literally as a stencil, right? Or we could put this back on. Why does this not fit anymore? Oh, just because I have it in the wrong place. Okay, so we have this as a stencil where we could put this back on top. So bear with me for just a minute, because this is what happens when you're trying to teach intuitively and you just don't have your things out in front of you when you need them. So I've got to go dig some stuff out, but I will be back. Okay, friends. So at first I was thinking bubble wrap dipped in paint, and then I was thinking gel print, and I ended up opening a drawer and finding these. And this is just a well-loved stencil, and I'm thinking about just adding a little bit of a hint of a pattern, but like just on the area where the leaves are. So there's a couple of different ways I could do this. If I knew where my spray paint was, that would be a quick and easy way. Oh, here it is, I found it. So I have this, I have a dolomite, which I think is kind of like, see the color on the top? So it's just sort of like a, not a super bright white. Or I also have, this is called magic white, which to me is a little bit like the transparent white that we played with in future, or not in future, in past lessons, where it gives you a little bit of transparency. Now we're gonna get a little bit of bleed through too, because we're doing it on top of watercolor. So maybe let's play with these. I think I wanna play with the magic white first. So one thing about these is they like to get very clogged up on top, and you gotta shake them real well. So I'm gonna put this over on this side maybe. And maybe I'll just put them back together so they make a circle with these bigger boys over here on the side. Make sure my little stencil doesn't move. I'm gonna move my candle so I don't just set the room on fire with my aerosols, because that's totally something I would do. And I'm just gonna hold this down. And I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what this is gonna do. Again, not something I've ever done before. I'm just making sure the spray is kind of getting into each one of those little holes. I'm going to come over here on this side. This is not going to be good for my manicure, I will say that. These are the sacrifices we make for art. Okay. Look at my manicure. It is not I now have magic white fingernails. Okay. Let's pull this off. Let's pull this off. And our stencil actually decided to come with it. Oh, how cute. I actually really like it, guys. So it gives us this little bit of like a cloudy effect. Remember how I told you it was transparent? So it's not giving us these big white dots in the background. It's just very, very subtle. So I don't want those to run, so I'm going to just lightly dry them. But that was a perfect example of just listening to the thing that I was craving, right? The thing that I was like, it'd be cute if there was a pattern back there. It'd be cute if there were like soft little pillowy white clouds back there. Listening to that, so you can kind of, it's hard to see, but I'm really enjoying that little bit of just transparency. But anyway, that is so fun. So thank you for indulging my little side trail. But anyway, that's a perfect example of just quieting and listening. And even though I knew, like, I started with bubble wrap, right? Like, that's the thing I wanted. But it's almost like Holy Spirit knew I would open the drawer that had this in it. You know what I mean? Like, you can get kind of woo-woo with all this stuff, but I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to understand life's mysteries. I just know that there's a whole bunch of wisdom out there for me that I don't understand, but the more that I lean into it, it seems to be a really good thing. So anyway, all that said, I am now looking at it going, what else do you want from me? And I'm not entirely sure, other than I like these dots that we made here by lifting some, and I like the dots that we made in the background. I like this space in between the leaves in the background where we have just like that fun blue that's showing through. So I'm trying to decide if I want to, I really need to get a new white gel pen. I really, really do. Guys, look, I just stuck my finger in the fluorescent. Maybe that's what I need to do. That was a total accident. I was just trying to move things so I could be more clear, but I do love to get my fingers in paint. So, but I think because this is a perfect dot, I want it to be a little more perfect. So instead of my finger, I think I'm going to use the end of this eraser, and I'm going to just pick up some of this paint over here and see what happens. And this will be a beautiful way. Now I just need to decide where it lives. Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. This will be a beautiful way to bridge those layers together. I love it so much. Okay, maybe one more. Down here. Yes. I sacrificed an eraser. That was so worth it. So I think I feel pretty good about peeling this paint off. And let me tell you why. I feel good because I'm really happy. I'm just really happy. I'm happy about those silly dots. I'm happy about the silly dots in the background. I'm just feeling really good. And so I feel like mission accomplished, right? Like, it isn't about making this painting perfect, right? It isn't about creating something that I'm gonna turn around and sell to somebody else, and so it just has to reach like a certain level of, you know, transcendence to this greatness. Instead, this is me. This is my personal practice. This is me taking time for myself and responding and listening, and I feel fantastic right now. It's like a little dose of endorphin. So it feels done. It feels good to me. That's what I'm listening to today. And it really is just about trusting that inner knowing that we have in us. I'm going to go back to this blue pen to sign my Le Pen. And I'm going to call this day, I'm writing up here day 24, I'm going to call this day done. I feel like it was so successful, and I hope you guys really enjoyed, but also are going to give some more time and reflection to what's available for you from your own creative spirit as far as direction goes. You don't really even need a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, it's wonderful to work under somebody, but you have this amazing teacher right inside of your heart. If you can just kind of learn to listen to that. It is a practice. It takes time. Like I said, I don't always get it right, but it keeps showing me the Spirit keeps showing me again and again who I am not, and I draw a sense of strength and a sense of knowing from this sort of practice that I then take into my life. So I hope you are blessed by that. And to me, it's feeling finished. So thank you so much for painting with me today, and I'll see you back tomorrow for day 25. Oh, we just have a few days left. Happy painting.